this model. Okay, interesting. Okay, Indradeep, you want to come up? Howard, you going to run the slides for him?
Yeah.
Okay. Indradeep Ghosh, is our speaker today. I'll let him introduce himself.
Yes, the Bluetooth mouse apparently works from here, which is good. Howard, so I have a mouse which works from here.
Oh. So you're gonna run it?
Yes, I can run it.
Wow. Such a deal. You're tired of it?
Okay. So good morning, everybody. My name is Unedited.
Can you speak at the microphone?
Microphone.
Here.
Yeah.
A bit tied to this place. Okay, my name is Indradeep Ghosh and I I have a day job at Fujitsu Labs of America, where I do some esoteric stuff on software quality assurance. But this talk is nothing about that. This doesn't involve my work. This is kind of my hobby. You can say my passion, personal conviction. So I have been a little bit of a green guy from the very beginning. And so when I started reading about these reports in the early part of this century about, they used to call it global warming then, about climate change, so I started thinking about what we as residents or a citizen of this country can do to kind of mitigate this problem. And so I started doing a lot of research, and I actually employed the internet extensively to do a lot of research. I went into all sorts of forums, started asking questions to people, and slowly I kind of a plan started to form. And actually, when I started this plan, all the solutions were not available to the consumer, which all changed in about 2010 when actually commercial EVs started being provided to consumers. And so the solution actually became complete, and finally at around end of 2011, I had my whole solution running in my home, which I call the Energy Plus household. Okay, so now I tell you what exactly is the Energy Plus household. So imagine a single family home in the suburbs. It's about 2,200 square feet. It's very close to the US median. Household of 4, 2 adults and 2 kids, again very typical. 2 commuting cars in the household, 2 working adults, nothing significant there. And we use those cars to do household chores over the weekend, visit nearby family, friends, entertainment and kids activities, whatnot. So the point about all this thing is that this house is kind of a very typical US household. There is nothing unusual about it. And now the unusual fact about this house is that it has 0 yearly energy bills. In fact, negative. And I'll tell you how it can be negative. And it has 0 electricity bills, it has 0 natural gas bills, and the household has also 0 gas bills in daily life. And it's completely sustainable and carbon-free with renewable energy. And I'll describe in this talk how I did it, and also some public policy issues and missing pieces which would be needed to make this solution work for everyone. And the philosophy over here is that I'm not advocating a minimalist lifestyle, because of course if you don't use any energy then you will have 0 bills. But I will be smart with energy use using all available clean tech. Okay, so just to avoid any confusion, the primary goal of this project is to create a sustainable and carbon neutral household. So the energy cost savings, whatever is it, is a byproduct of this project, and that was a secondary consideration. So there may be situations where I did something which probably at that point of time may not have made financial sense, but definitely made sense from the point of sustainability and carbon neutrality. So just to make that sure. And 90% of the household carbon footprint right now is direct fossil fuel based energy usage. So the first step was to create a net 0 energy home, eliminate all direct fossil fuel use in daily life. And the reason is daily life will be very apparent. It's the problem with current technology. And use renewable energy for all day-to-day energy use. So this is the slide which shows the overview and the outline of the whole talk. So if you think about how we actually consume energy in day-to-day life, there is a component which I called the direct consumption, right? So this is the component which you have direct control over. So this is the energy that you are kind of spending on your own, and you know what kind of energy you are spending, how to reduce it, and things like that. And then there is a component which is, I call indirect consumption. For example, if you take a flight, you will be consuming volumes of energy, but you have no direct control over what kind of fuel will be burnt in the airplane and things like that. So the first step that what I would do is basically try to reduce and eliminate this direct energy consumption. So it consists of three parts. One is electricity that we use in our home, natural gas, which we mostly use for heating and cooking, and gasoline in our cars. And the first step would be to increase the efficiency of the home. So as a result, the electricity usage would go down, and probably the natural gas usage also will go down a little bit. One thing is, you can feel free to interrupt anytime if you have any question. And the next step would be to electrify the whole home. So as a result, all these natural gas appliances will be converted to electrical appliances. So then we have just gasoline and electricity. And next, a step after that would be to convert all the gasoline cars to electric automobiles, EVs. And so we have electricity and a little bit of gasoline, and this is basically the long drive gasoline, so which still we have some issues with. It's not yet solved. So we burn a little bit of gasoline, but not in day-to-day living. It's only when you are going on a long drive or on a vacation, and then kind of offset all that energy with renewable energy. So basically at this point of time, the preliminary goal has been achieved, that it's sustainable in day-to-day living, and then there is a little bit which will be left, which we can actually solve right now if we have the right public policy and infrastructure. And then a little bit still left, which is, I call the missing pieces in research, to make everything completely sustainable. So the major part of my talk will be on this. What I could do to kind of make my whole energy footprint sustainable. So the first step was to create a whole energy, to do a whole energy, whole house energy audit. And you could do it using two steps. So first step is to use this device. It's called a kilowatt meter. You can get it from Amazon, it's 20 bucks. Or you can actually even rent it from a library. Some of the libraries here in Silicon Valley have this. Yeah. And what you can do is you can plug in a device over here, and this goes into your 3-pin outlet, and you run your device, and it tells you how much power that device is consuming. How many watts it's drawing. If you have a computer, you have some other appliance, a portable heater or something, you can immediately know how much power it's consuming. So this is all good for appliances which you can plug into your home. But there are appliances which are like directly connected to your wire, like lights over here, or this 220 volt huge appliances which do not have a 3-pin plug. So what do you do for that? So the way I did it actually, it's a bit tedious, but it can be done, is if you have a smart meter, most people have a smart meter right now, and you use the process called isolation. So you have your breaker panel, you shut off all those breakers in your home. So at that point of time, your home should consume 0 electricity. Then you identify the breaker where your appliance is, which you want to monitor. Just turn that on, okay? And then you turn on the appliance that you want to monitor. And your smart meter should give a reading as to how much your house is consuming at that point of time. And that's exactly what that device is consuming at that point of time, because everything else is shut off. And you can isolate every device in your house like this, and you can come up with a energy footprint of all the devices in your home. So this is what I did, and what amazed me was the amount of energy wasted by the so-called standby loads or vampire loads that people call. So what I did was I shut off everything in my home, every single device, every light, everything. The whole house was completely shut off. And I went to the meter and I found that it was drawing 220 watts. And the reason was that there were all these devices which, even when you shut off, even if you power off, they keep on leaching power from the outlets. And if you add them all up, I probably have about 60, 70 devices connected in my whole home. They just add up, and there are some which are really bad, the main culprits, and I will come to. So the first step was to increase the efficiency of the home. Okay, so I replaced all my lighting with LED lights. So LED lights are becoming popular now. They are a little bit expensive, but the costs are coming down. I usually buy most of my lights from eBay. They get shipped directly from China. And though they may be a little bit less reliable, I think it's okay. So far, I have been having them for about 3 years, and maybe the failure rate is about 10–15%. I think it's acceptable. So the lighting load actually went down from 900 watts, which is if I had incandescent bulbs, to about 230 watts if you have CFLs, and down to 150 watts for LEDs. So they are about 1/6 the power consumption of incandescent bulbs. And another good point about a CFL, about a LED bulb, is that in a CFL you have a warm-up period. So when you turn on the light, it doesn't immediately start going bright. But an LED, that problem is not there. It immediately is bright. So that is good. And another thing is that the CFLs have mercury in them. So recycling them is an issue. So you can't put it in your garbage bin. You have to go to special recycling centers to put in your CFLs or your fluorescent tubes. And an LED doesn't have any mercury. So that will also not there. So that's the first step. The second step was Energy Star appliances. So when you moved into the home, it didn't have any of these appliances. I made sure that I bought Energy Star. They are not that much. Actually, most appliances right now are Energy Star. There are very few dishwashers which you will get which are not Energy Star, because probably it doesn't cost that much money to make a dishwasher efficient. And this is the thing that I was talking about. So reduce standby power. So the highest culprit in the standby power is actually the digital video recorder, or DVR. So this is essentially a computer, and I don't know what kind of design philosophy that these people had in mind. The hard disk in that thing keeps on spinning. So it spins 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, even if you don't use your DVR at all. And so it's like a desktop computer which is running all the time. And the thing is, you cannot switch it off, because you want to record your program, right? So you might want to record it at 2 a.m. in the night, and you are not awake at that time to kind of switch it on. So you have to keep on running it, and it will keep on consuming the power. So there is no way out of this. And another problem is that if you turn it off, then it will take 15 minutes to boot. So that you want to watch TV, you have to wait 15 minutes before it comes online. So all these problems means that unless people design this in a better way, there is no way out of this. So I actually looked at the various choices I have Dish Network that they have, and this one model actually consumed the lowest standby power, and I actually went for it. It reduced it somewhat, but still this is pretty big. Okay. So the next step that I did was to use this load cutoff devices. They are actually remote switches with a kind of a remote, and you can plug in all your things which reaches power to that outlet over here, right, this one. And then you can put this remote in a central location in your home, like in a hallway or something. So suppose you have a host of peripherals and a computer, which you are using maybe 2–3 hours a day, and you switch them off, but then still all of them are leaching power if you want to watch each, which add up to maybe 5-6 watts. You put this to one of these terminals and then go to the remote and just switch it off, and it cuts off all of the computation. So this is not expensive, like these 3 switches, probably $30 or something, and it reduces my standby load from 220 watts to 180 watts. So I saved 40 watts. And 40 watts may not look like much, but you multiply that by 24 and 365, you get 350 kilowatt hours per day. So this was one of the tricks that I did. The other thing that you could do is, I think very important, is insulating your attic walls and floor. And of course, retrofit is expensive. I think the attic is the most easy. You can just go up there and you can kind of spray that cellulose insulation. The walls little bit more difficult because you have to actually drill hole into your stuccos and pull in the cellulose in there. And the floor actually is almost impossible, especially if you have concrete slab, then you probably can't do anything. So unless it's done with insulation in mind, you have to live with that. So my house is a little bit newer house. It's built in 1990s. So at that point of time, the code already mandated that some insulation be put in, and so it has some insulation. So I didn't do much about this. It's already there. It had double pane windows. Now you can get triple pane windows even. I mean, they are more efficient but cost more. And finally, most of you already have a programmable thermostat. I use this older one from Honeywell. You can, if you want, you can get this new very cool one called the Nest thermostat. It's by a company from here in Palo Alto. It's sometimes called the iPhone of thermostats because because it is very nice looking. It has a Wi-Fi interface with your smartphone, so you can actually switch off your AC from Europe if you want to. So those kind of things. I mean, this thing actually suffices for me. And finally, efficient heating, cooling, and water heating equipment. And this I put in red because this is the most important thing in terms of energy efficiency. Okay. And finally, there are these host of steps that anybody can take, like switching off lights or installing motion sensors, using full loads in the washer, dryer, this washer using thermostat controls with setback, curtains and shades, remove the garage refrigerator and freezer if possible, because it's just drawing continuous power, and then low flow faucets and shower heads to conserve water and heat, and washing cold water with high efficiency detergent, and insulate the old water heater. You don't need to insulate the new water heaters because they already have insulation built in, according to code. But the old ones maybe help. Okay, so I did all this, and the next step was, so one thing, I probably can't do back over here. So that's one thing. So the efficiency upgrades actually reduce the total electricity consumption of the home by about 30%. Okay. So the next step was to electrify the whole home. So there were three appliances in my home which use natural gas. So one was cooking, one was water heating, and one was heating and cooling. So for the heating and cooling, I had a AC and a gas furnace. So I converted that, and these tags over here, the amount of money that I spent on each. So I converted that to an air source heat pump. So this is basically a 200% efficient older AC, 80% efficient gas furnace. And the air source heat pump is actually a 200 to 400% efficient device. Now, if you're wondering how something can be more than 100% efficient, just bear with me, I'll come to it. And so as a result, you get an efficiency gain of about 2x to 4x over here. Okay. Similarly, I converted this water heating, gas water heater, which is 60% efficient, to a heat pump water heater. This is by GE, it's called the GeoSpring water heater. You can get it at Lowe's right now. And it is about 100 to 300% efficient. So it's a 2x to 5x efficiency gain. And finally, converted the gas cooktop to the induction cooktop. And this was actually the most difficult step because I had a big fight with my wife. Well, I don't cook much, so I could understand where she's coming from. And the reason is that the electric cooktops, they have a ramp up and ramp down time. So when you turn it off, it immediately doesn't get hot. I mean, a gas flame, when you turn it on, you get a 2000 Fahrenheit heat source immediately. But an electric, it slowly ramps up and then actually it slowly ramps down. So when you want to modulate the heat, it doesn't modulate as well. So there are some issues. However, the induction one is actually much better. So actually we did side-by-side comparison. So I put 2 quarts of water on a gas cooktop at full heat and an induction cooktop with full heat. And actually the induction cooktop was able to boil it faster than the gas one. So over here, since it doesn't actually transfer heat, it uses magnetism to induce the heat at the base of the pan. The heat transfer is much faster. So actually, it solves most of the problems, I would say. I mean, there is some issue with the modulation because in a flame, actually, you can see how low or how high it is. Here, you just have a number which tells you whether you're going up or down. But other than that, I mean, it suffices most of the time. So I think she is still not completely convinced, but she can live with it. So
Bring your wife.
Okay, so after doing all these things, so this induction cooktop is actually 85% efficient. So 85% of the electrical energy goes into heat energy in the cooking pan, whereas this gas cooktop is just 40% efficient and the rest of the heat is just dissipated into the surrounding. Okay. So all these, after doing all these things, now my house is completely running on electricity. So it's an all-electric home. And so this is the consumption pattern. It's a bit approximate because you really can't know exactly how much each portion is consuming, but you know how much each device is consuming and you kind of have an idea as to how long you are turning on those devices every day. And you add the number of hours with that the device consuming to get the energy. And also you can look at your meter to see how much it's going up in a day and isolate based on switching off a device for a day and things like that.
Indradeep.
Yeah.
Where do you live? Because I see your summer cooling is not a lot.
Yeah, in Cupertino.
In Cupertino?
Yeah. So Bay Area is fine. So that's why probably you need cooling 20 days a year or something like that. When we have one of those heat waves.
Maybe you do. Down where I live.
So in winter, I had the highest consumption, okay? And as you can see, most of the consumption was heating and water heating. So almost 75% of the consumption of the whole home was in these two. And then you have a little bit, the lighting is almost becoming insignificant now, some electronics, some cooking, washing, drying, and still a big chunk of standby. And I'll tell you why the standby is still there. And then in summer, I mean, we are in a mild area, so a little bit of cooling, not much. And then in these 2 months where we have neither cooling or heating is the lowest consumption of 500 kilowatt hours per month, right? And so if you look at the whole year, this is what you get. So 9,900 kilowatt hours for the whole year. About 60% of it is water heating and cooling, room heating and cooling, and then the rest of it is body. Okay? And the third most highest is actually the standby, which is really bad because this is almost all wasted energy, but I couldn't do anything about it. And if you divide this number by the square feet of my home, which is 2,200, you get this number which is called 4.5 kilowatt hours per square feet per year. So that brings me to my next slide, which is kilowatt hour per square feet, which I call the MPG of your home. And however, lower is better. Yeah.
I have a question. The standby power you're talking about, does that include the refrigerator?
Yes. So the So the refrigerator, there is actually two components. One is when the compressor turns on, and the other is a little bit of power when it's just on standby. So it's that standby power which is included, not for when the compressor transfers.
When is the compressor?
So that is an intermediate step, right? So if you look at your profile, you will see that from time to time you will have a spike, and so that area which is under that spike is excluded, and then all that one which is at the bottom, which is the standby for the refrigerator, that is. So this, of course, lower is better over here, unlike LPG. So the way you can calculate this is you can add up 12 months of electricity use from your utility bills, which I say is X kilowatt hours. For the electricity not offset by renewable power, you need to multiply by a grid factor. So this is the primary energy by the end user energy. So not all the energy that is used to generate electricity comes to you, about only 50% does in California. So you multiply that by 2 to get the primary energy, and then add up all the kilowatt hours produced by renewables, which is of course all clean, and then you add up all your natural gas use for 12 months, which is a Y terms. There is a 5% loss in CA, so you multiply by that 1.05, and then convert that to kilowatt hours. So each farm of gas has 29.3 kilowatt hours in it. And so you add them all up and you divide by the square footage of your home, and you get this number, which is the kilowatt hour per square feet per year of your home. And this is how homes stack up. So most US homes are between 10 and 20, and I put this in orange because it's kind of bad, I do much better. And if you are a little bit energy conscious, then you will be between 7 and 10. And my home is currently Energy Star, which is something below 7, between 4 and 7. There is something called a passive house. This is, you need to design your home initially with energy efficiency in mind. So ordinary homes will not be able to reach this, but you can go as low as 2.5, and then of course, if you are a minimalist, then you can go to 0. So this is the like the energy profile of most US homes right now, and this is a standard home without a pool or a hot tub, because those are like huge energy homes. So I did not do it.
And without the car.
Without the car, this is just the one. Just the one. Okay, and so now since heating and cooling is very important, and I told you how things can be more than 100% efficient, I will explain that. Let's visit this device is called heat pumps. So these are excellent devices for saving energy, and the way it works is like this. So you have a kind of a place where you capture heat, and then a kind of a place where you actually pump that heat out. So in summer, your AC is actually a heat pump. It captures heat from inside your home and pumps it outside into the warm air, right? So it's actually pumping heat against the gradient, right? Using a coolant, which uses this evaporation, compression, condensation, and expansion, this cycle, right? And so you have your AC here, which actually takes in heat from your home and pumps it outside. And then what you can do is you can also use this to heat your home. You just reverse the cycle. So in winter, you capture heat from the cold outside, which might seem counterintuitive, but the cold outside actually does have heat, and you pump that against the gradient into your home, right? And so it becomes a heating device. Okay. So the efficiency of this system actually degrades with the temperature difference between the outside and the inside. However, it's still quite efficient, and since it is not actually generating any heat, it's just kind of pumping heat from one place to another. There is something called a coefficient of performance, which is the heat energy pumped into the home divided by the electrical energy spent in the device. And this is typically more than 1. So it varies between 3 and 4, maybe 2 if it is inefficient. And so that is how you get your more than 100% efficiency. So it's not actually more than 100% efficiency. I mean, theoretically this COP can go to 10. But I mean, if you compare it with a gas device, it is more than 100%. Yes, please.
I built a house, I live at 2,000 feet up the hillside in the sun, and on 2 acres without one, of course. So, we were on wells and septic tanks, so that was the thing was that if you wanted gas, you had to bring propane. And I happen to be one of those people that I can smell gas in my own air and really hate it, so the house is all around. Okay, so one of the things, I had to fight with contractors because I wanted insulation, I wanted the heavy insulation in the attic. It's a tri-level house because of the slope. So instead of putting in, because it was all electric, instead of putting in, a thing that distributes all around the house, I have a system called Videographer that's hot water.
Radiant flow heating.
Each room, so I can shut off part of the house, walk into another part, and even if I'm, I can see my breath, I don't care, as long as I have a photo. By the way, I was wondering why people don't put on extra sweaters. I do that all the time. But, and then I didn't do double windows because I just gave up with the contractor. I said, we live in California, where the heck is this? But anyway, I insulated the outer walls, the inner walls, and the one thing I didn't think about was between floors. So I made that mistake. But I was wondering what you think about Unifirm. I mean, I built it in '72, so it's probably time for me maybe to look for an upgrade and give me an Unifirm.
So this thing is in the floor?
No, it's not in any, well, a couple of them are in the living room, but most of them are little units that you can put in cabinets.
Oh,
Baseboard, and then, yeah, that kind of thing.
yeah, so baseboard is not efficient because baseboard is essentially resistive heating. So resistive heating is just 100% efficient. You will never go more than 100. So one way of doing it is the radiant floor heating, where you put in these hot water tubes inside your floor, and then you can use a heat pump to heat that water, and then that you can get your more than. So most of the passive houses that I saw, which are very energy efficient, they use this radiant floor heating technique.
Did you look at solar hot water?
Yes. So that is also, I did some calculations with that, and actually the photovoltaics with the heat pump water heater comes very close to what you could get with the solar collector.
That's true for indirect. What about direct if you live in a very moderate climate? Obviously not here in the Bay
Right.
Area, but like
Yeah, so for me.
The fundamental difference, it comes down to excess energy, right? You can capture more energy with direct solar, but unless you're using a lot of hot water, you're just then venting it off as excess heat. The thing when you go grid tie is you can dump the excess energy into the grid.
PG&E is your greatest battery.
Exactly. I had plumbed for solar, hot water, and I still haven't done anything with it. I keep going. I just put up more panels. If for that money, I'm better off putting up more panels.
I just look at my parents put in direct solar, and they have the problem of if it goes over 95 degrees Celsius, it'll dump the whole tank, and it's like well that's kind of a waste. There's no more way of storing it.
Okay,
Just really quickly, if any of you want to explore the joys of solar cooking, the Lichtenbergs from the Rotary Association have an amazing display at the Art in the Park event in Los Altos today from 10 to 5:30 and tomorrow 10 to 5:30 in Los Altos near Brooklyn Expressway and in that area. So I encourage you to go and see the Lichtenbergs this morning.
Okay, so maybe we should move on. Or, yeah. I'll talk to you later. So this is actually the heat pump performance. So initially, it's when the temperature difference is low, your outside is at 65 Fahrenheit. It's almost 450% efficient, like 4.5 COP. And then as the temperature goes down, it actually reduces slowly. And then somewhere around 38 Fahrenheit, what happens is that the heat pump actually cannot produce enough heat to heat the home anymore. So at this point of time, there are these auxiliary heating strips which are inside the heat pump which fire, and those are, since they are resistive heating, they are just at COP of 100%. So the two actually average out to something like this, and this point is known as the balance point. So the heat pump becomes quite inefficient below this, but since Bay Area we rarely go below 38, I mean maybe 1 month in January and December in the early morning, most of the time the heat pump is quite efficient. And you can do better than this, but I think it's an overkill when I will come to that. So the average, if you do over the whole year, it comes to 3, so it's a 300% efficient.
What is the reason for that inflection point? Is it the coolant that they're using in the loop?
No, the heat pump, the auxiliary heating coming on is the heating facility, right?
Yeah, so basically it starts working harder and harder because the amount of heat that is needed to heat your home goes up as the temperature goes down. On the other hand, the amount of heat that it can capture from outside goes down. So it goes with a double problem, and so at some point of time it cannot maintain temperature.
I also heat with the air source heat pump primarily. An interesting counterintuitive thing, at least, is when you're heating with a heat pump, you don't want to set back too far, because
That's true.
and so that has a nice side effect that if you like things to be comfortable, you get that benefit if you don't go really cold. And my observation is, by keeping the objects in the house relatively warmer, you're more comfortable at a lower temperature than if your house is full of cold objects, and then when you want to warm up, you want the air temperature to be really warm. Whereas if the objects are relatively warm, not hot, you can be very comfortable at a much lower set point.
You mitigate that
Yeah.
heater thing if you use ground-based heat exchanger?
Yeah, so the ground-based heat exchanger, what it does is it heats water, right? So it heats water using a heat pump, and if that heat pump is again an air source heat pump, then this problem can again happen.
Not air source, ground-based.
I'll come to that. It's like a ground source heat pump. Yes, I'll come to it.
Does the heat pump work well when you have, like really real cold area?
Well, we need a ground source.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So this one works well if the temperature is mostly above freezing. But if the temperature goes below freezing, then you need a little bit different. But since over here it rarely goes below freezing,
From the this old house, for those people who live in really cold climates or freezing, they use deep wells for ground source.
yes, yeah.
So you have to go below the frost line.
Let me come to that. I have it here. Okay, so I go to the standby load analysis. So I still have about 170 watts of standby in my home, and the reason I couldn't do anything about it is because some devices are just made to be on standby. For example, your heat pump, so it requires the coolant to be maintained at a particular temperature and pressure, so it keeps on drawing 45 watts continuously. The DVR I talked about before, your garage door opener, right? You cannot switch it off because people will be coming in and out all the time. And it keeps on, that sensor keeps on drawing this 14 or 15 watts all the time.
There's new garage door openers that do shut down.
So the ones that I do shut down are my computers, my entertainment system except the DVR, right? All those DVD players, receivers and all those things. And yeah, basically 2 computers with peripherals and this entertainment system.
There are also DVRs too, like that will actually go into full standby now.
Yeah, so this is actually a new thing that happened. Yes.
Question, how did you get these numbers? Did you measure them or?
Yeah. So some of it you can use the kilowatt meter because most of them are plugged in. And if it's not, then you can use your smart meter.
If you feel like something more real time, there's a company in Canada called Rolltech that makes one that goes onto every circuit, so you can actually measure real time every circuit in your house. It's pretty cool. You can see this.
I was going to point out, if you want to see a demo of it, I have whole per circuit monitoring.
Yeah, I can show you.
Okay, so 1 watt, though, remember, is equivalent to 9 kilowatt hours per year. So this 170 watts is actually wasting 1500 kilowatt hours. And I think we can do much better over here by designing the appliances in a much better way. Okay, so the next slide is, I come a little bit to the economics, and the economics is when I actually wanted to convert my home to all electric, the PG&E lady was completely surprised. So she said that, you know, you are going to pay through your nose to do this. And the reason is, I mean, the economics of this natural gas and this electricity in PG&E is actually discourages people to do this. And if you look at the way that PG&E rates are right now, in winter the electric rate actually averages about, for me, 23 cents per kilowatt hour. It's a tiered system. You have to take the average. In summer it's about 19, and in May it's about 16. And in gas, the consumption for those will be something like this. So if you take the gas prices, which are now almost rock bottom, it has never been so low in history, and you see that you pay a penalty of about 6x to get the same amount of energy in electricity in winter. In summer, maybe 5x, and at least 4x. Now, if you remember from the previous slides, my efficiency gain was just about 3x. So I can never actually offset this penalty by using these electrical appliances, even though they are much more efficient. And so that's why most people over here, at least in PG&E territory, don't go this route. But actually there is one company over here called Silicon Valley Power, which supplies electricity to Santa Clara. Their rates are actually half of that of PG&E. I don't know how they do it, but if you plug in all those numbers over here, you will be better off going with it. I mean,
we had a good explanation from Silicon Valley Power guy at the last Bay Leafs, and it's basically because their residential customers only 8% of their load, so that's why they can offer the flat rate. So the big problem with this is your baseline and charging above your baseline. They don't have a baseline, so it's just 10 cents a kilowatt hour always.
24/7.
Yeah, and if you plug those numbers in there, I mean, you will always be better off by going
Sadly.
Move to Santa Clara.
And move to Santa Clara.
But actually the equation completely changes if you have solar power, because right now even the most expensive solar power is 9 cents a kilowatt hour that you can get installed, and that is even lower than the baseline rates of PG&E. And so if you install solar power, then you can actually have
So once you have solar, you want the rates to be high. Then high rates are your friend.
The little downside though, the baseline, you get more baseline if you go all electric. If you get a little extra in winter, they give you an extra 9 kilowatt hours a day. So, you know,
They give you a little nudge, in the right direction.
A little nudge
in the right direction. Okay.
Yeah, and actually I have some.
Yeah, exactly. It's double.
I have some spreadsheets that I have made where you can actually plug in all these numbers for gas and electric, and it actually compares the lifetime cost of the appliances. I can share it with so you can download and plug in your specific situation to see if it makes sense for you. Okay, so the third step of the electrification was electrifying the cars. So my wife did not want to deal with range anxiety at all. So that was the compromise. So she drives the Volt. So it's currently at about 500 mpg. It hardly goes into gas ever, but he still doesn't want to. Yeah. So, and it's 33 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, about 6,000 kilowatt hours per year. There still is this Highlander hybrid, but I drive the Focus electric now, and that because my commute is very low, about 6 miles each way, it runs about 5,000 miles a year, so 1,600 kilowatt hours per year. And then the third car is that red part, which I couldn't offset yet. It's for all those long drives, extended family trips, and then large item hauling and this kind of thing. So there is no solution in the easy mode right now as of yet. So if you sorry, go back. Well,
Really,
Can you hit back for him?
you don't go forward.
Well, if you move the mouse to the arrow down the bottom, you
now one. Okay. No.
So there's your battery.
Battery is gone. No. No. Yeah. So if you look at the total requirement now, the home requires 9900, the cars requires 4600, so total is 14,500 kilowatt hours. And so a 10 kilowatt ideal tilt system with no shade should be able to generate this in Cupertino. And I did that calculation. Now if you use time of use rates where you actually sell to PG&E at a higher rate during the time when solar is actually producing the most, and then take from PG&E at a lower rate during the night, then actually you can get away with 8.5 kilowatt system. But my aim was to generate all energy, not only offset the cost. So I went with the 10 kilowatt system. The problem was that my home, even though I made sure that it had a south-facing roof when I bought the home, the roof actually slopes east and west, most of the roof. So if you put your panels in there, they will not be really south-facing. They are actually mostly east and west facing. So they are a bit suboptimal. So I needed a 12 kilowatt, almost 11.8 kilowatt system. So I put in that system in September of 2011, and it was online in October. It's about 40 panels, 295 watts. They are monocrystalline. So the monocrystalline panels are a little bit smaller than the polycrystalline ones, and I was trying to squeeze out every single inch from my roof. So I went with the monocrystalline. They are slightly more expensive also, but not by much. And so the expected output was 16,400 kilowatt hours, which is about 10% higher than what I need. And this also was a deliberate move because the output degrades by about 0.5% each year. So I wanted it to generate even after 20 years all I needed. So I put in the extra amount there. And so there were some advances in solar energy which I could take advantage of, some recent advances. So one thing is that most people don't know it now, but the costs are really, really low. I mean, the solar panels you can get for as low as 70 cents a watt. Only 3 years back they were $3 a watt. So they reduced by almost 75% over the last 3 years. And then the install cost, if you do the breakup, you will see the panel is 85 cents, the inverter is 35. So the installation and the permitting process, this is now becoming the bottleneck. More than 50%. Yeah. Yeah, so $3 a watt. So if you multiply by that 12,000 to 36,000. So I'll come to the economics of it. So another new advance in solar energy is microinverters. So these are, each solar panel can have its own inverter. As a result, they are not dependent on each other to generate energy. They are more efficient. But these ones, at least when I put in, they couldn't handle more than 250 watt panels. Now they can, the new ones can. And another problem is they are more expensive, and you actually increase the number of parts in your system, so the mean time to failure of a part will go down. So that is one disadvantage. But many people are going with microinverters now. What I used are these things called performance optimizers. So these are some modules which you latch onto your panel, and it increases the string output by about 10%. And the way it works, and they are actually cheaper, much cheaper than the microinverters. And the way it works is like this. So suppose you have a string of solar panels like this. They are each generated 100 watts and goes to an inverter. The inverter has some losses, so you are pumping 380 watts into the grid. And one of them gets some shade, right? So immediately the output of that panel goes down. It goes to 40 watts. The problem is that it makes all the other panels suffer because they are connected in series. So all of these actually go down to 40 volts. So this is where the optimizers come in. So you put in a parallel path to your panels, and they keep on monitoring using this gateway at the bottom to see which panel, if any, is inefficient, and just bypass that panel. So then the other panels keep on producing at 100 watts, only that panel is at 40 watts. So if you use microinverters, of course, this is not an issue because each panel is on its own. But in a string, you can use this to essentially get the same effect. So I use this company called Tygo. They are a company in Los Gatos who make these optimizers. There are also a company called SolarEdge who makes these optimizers. So you can use them. And typically the string inverter plus the optimizer is cheaper than putting in microinverters.
I'll just mention one other innovation in inverters has come out this summer, actually, is emergency power without batteries. So if the grid is down, you can actually literally plug into your inverter when the sun's out to get up to 1,500 watts of power per inverter. So that's for those that are concerned about earthquakes and emergency stuff. That's another interesting innovation.
Which brings to mind another question. Why isn't it they can't build some kind of switch so that when there is, the grid is power outage, obviously you don't want to pump power onto the grid. Why can't they come up with a switch that cuts off your power going out and your house just stays totally powered up? So
that's what
but without having to go through steps.
Yeah, you can do that now, but you have to have batteries to do that. You basically charge your batteries and then your batteries.
Well, the problem is you're often generating more power than what you're using.
I understand.
So you can't be generating 4 kilowatts and then only be using 200 watts. You've got to dump that power somewhere. So that's why you need some way to, that's what a lot of people don't think about is that, the fact that the supply I want to do the same.
Yes.
They do have systems. Outback has one, and Sandtrex has one that are actually intended for off-grid applications, and they will grid tie as well. So it's a little bit more expensive.
Some people have come up with ways with microinverters too, to actually basically selectively use the microinverter, so you can pick and just use 1 panel or 2 panels as the load goes up and down. So there's all sorts of creative ways you can do it.
Okay. In fact, what would be nice, and what I think Nissan is doing this in Japan, you can run your house on the leaf, right? So, I mean, then it's an interesting thing where if you really do go down, could you have your solar power of your leaf at your battery backup and then dump the leaf or whatever. That's cool.
So, I mean, ultimately you need a battery to equip them and have a poly mode, right? So.
The general term is islanding.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So these are this table I made in order to just tell you what are the different type of choices you can have for solar installation right now and what steps and cost it entails. So if you can DIY guy, you can install the panels on your roof. That's the best thing, and you have the time. So the system cost after rebates is $1.2 per watt, which translates to about 5 cents a kilowatt hour for a 25-year life. And you have to do all these steps. You have to estimate the system, design the system, pull the permit, purchase parts, install. The city will inspect, then you do the PG&E connection, and you get paperwork. And in the running steps, it's clean, repair, monitor, and then of course you have to replace equipment, installation you have to do if you want to replace, and insurance. So, but it's $1.2 watt. What I did was somewhere in the middle. So I actually, I'm an electrical engineer, so I estimated my system, I went up my roof, I measured the roof, I designed the system myself, I did all the schematics, and then I purchased all the parts myself, and then I got a solar installer, a licensed solar contractor to just charge me for the labor and the permitting. And so as a result, it was slightly more expensive, it was $2 a watt, but I couldn't do the installation, I am not a roofing guy. So the racking and all those things I couldn't do. So, and then if you don't want any hassle, then you can just go to Solar City, and they have a nice 20-year upfront pay lease right now, which is $2.5 a watt, 9 cents a kilowatt hour, and you just call them and pay them, and they do everything for you. And they also maintain the system, and if there is any problem, they repair the system and so on. So this gives a good the spread of what you can do with the solar. And right now, I think the cost of installing any new power generation unit, be it natural gas or something, is in the order of 10 to 11 cents a kilowatt hour. You can see that all these are actually cheaper than natural gas right now. I'm talking about new generation plants. So that brings up very interesting economics in the utility sector. So this is the year-round system performance. I projected the data a little bit because the Focus I bought last September. I still don't have 1 year worth of data. But as you can see that this red is the consumption, the green is the generation, and the blue is the net. So in the winter months, I will be a net consumer. I will consume more than I generate. And then in the summer months, I will be a net generator. And it should even out to the whole year. And this is actually what happened. So after 1 year, and PG&E sent me this statement, so I had 4,000 kilowatt hours excess generation than what I consumed. And actually, it is higher than my estimate because the EVs were not there for the last year, whole of last year. This year, I think it will be much closer. And so I had 4,000 kilowatt hours that I sold to PG&E in excess of my consumption. And so now they should give me some money, right? And they give me $122. So, and the reason is that PG&E only pays wholesale rates. So this is the amount of money that they pay their other generating customers, like a natural gas plant or something, to purchase power, like 3 to 4 cents a kilowatt hour. And so if you sell them power, they will also sell it at the, give you money at the same rate.
So they would do that for anybody with a system like you?
Yes, anybody.
This is a relatively recent change.
I'm sorry, what?
A year ago. This pricing has been in effect for a year.
But I mean, they are paying if you generate enough excess.
Yeah.
If you have an interconnect agreement, they will, which everybody with solar does, if you're doing that.
But it's only if energy, excess energy. So if you're time of use, you can go negative in dollars, but they won't pay you that. You have to get the negative energy.
The minute you become a net generator, so you break cost where they do the whole year true up, the minute that you generate more power than you use, then it goes down to like 1.2 cents a kilowatt hour that they pay you versus the time of use rates and all of this.
Yeah.
Becomes pretty,
It's
still better than paying them.
Factor only helps you when you're.
It helps you when you're balancing around the 0 point, right? Especially in summer. 80 cents.
Yeah, so I mean, this is really very, I would say, a pittance for the amount of investment that you make in the solar. So I think the best option is to just even out, unless you want to have that 10% more for degradation. If you are not so paranoid, then just. And they can pay you, or put an EV charging station in front of you. And so there was an article on this in San Jose Mercury News in February. So I actually contacted the reporters, they came to all the data and an article. So this is actually the economics. So I actually paid, these are all in thousands, so 15,000 for retrofitting my home, 30,000 extra for the car, so you subtract the cost of equivalent gasoline cars, and then 39,000 for the solar, for the 84,000, and then got all those rebates in each step, and as a result the net was 49,000, and so it saves about $4,500 right now in gasoline and utility costs. So payback is 11 years. But actually right now this was done in 2011. Right? So in 2013, it's gone down even further. So right now you buy 2 Nissan Leafs, you have no extra cost in the cars. Right? It's zero. And then the solar actually went down a little bit even from then. So right now the payback is about 8 years. And if you do a rate of return, it's 10%, which is really good. So I think it's just going to go down more with time. So this completes this section. So I'll just go through a little bit quickly over here. So what we can do better right now with public policy. So one thing that I did a lot of research on efficiency, and I did a lot of efficiency in my home, but you can go even lower. And so the question is, how low can you go? And if you have something called a passive house, and there are a few coming up here in the Bay Area, I saw one in Palo Alto. It's a standard out of Germany where you actually, the heating requirement needs to be about 1 watt per square feet peak. So this is a really stringent requirement, because imagine if you have a 2000 square feet home, your peak heating load is 2000 watts, which is basically the heat from a hairdryer. So that is what you need to do. So it has a very tight envelope. It insulates like hell at the bottom, side, on the top. Use triple pane windows. Use a heat. Yeah.
I was going to say, even quadruple pane in Germany.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's getting crazy.
Yeah. And it has heat recovery ventilation. So that means that if you have such a tight envelope, then your house will not vent any air outside. The air becomes stale inside the home. So you need extra ventilation to periodically pump out the air from your home. But if you pump out the air from your home, you're also losing the heat that is in that air. So this ventilator actually recaptures that heat before pumping it out and puts it back in your home. So it does all this, and the cost is about 10% higher than a normal home to code right now. So $300 per square feet over here for a new home. This one maybe $330, $350 a square feet. And it cut the heating and cooling by half. So I have 4,000 kilowatt hours, you can go cut it down to 2,000. And then you can design the appliances with this low power that you were saying. So there was an agreement with EPA just last December that all these DVR makers and satellite providers are going to provide these sleep and deep sleep modes in their DVR. So from this year onwards, they will become much more efficient. And so you can save another 1,000 kilowatt hours, I think. And then the third one is this ground source heat pump. So as I told you before, that the air source heat pumps, it loses efficiency as the air goes down. But what if you exchange your heat with the ground? So 50 feet below the ground, the temperature is a constant 50 Fahrenheit. So the outside is freezing, still 50 Fahrenheit. Outside 100 Fahrenheit, still 50 Fahrenheit. So then if you exchange your do a heat exchange with those loops inside the ground, then the heat pump can actually maintain a constant COP of 4. So actually it saves you about 1,500 kilowatt hours per year. But the point is, it's an overkill over here, and I'll tell you why. And then you can do water conservation, like grey water recycling, and that will also come down energy. But I think you do all this, and I think this is the minimum. I think you cannot go below this if you want all the modern amenities.
I'll just mention, taking some of the lessons learned from a passive house, you don't have to go with a new home. Just you can tighten up. In fact, some of the best or lowest cost things are to just tighten up your home before you do the insulation. I mean, just the little leaks, every place your pipes go up, through your roof, can be sealed, and even your vents can lose up to 30% of the energy out of them. So even an existing home, not going, completely electric or whatever, should be looking at tightening up the envelope and save money that way, and energy obviously.
Yes.
Does the installation of the ground source heat pump included in that 45K? I mean, it seems like the installation will involve taking whole.
Yes. So that's why it's quite expensive. There is a 30% federal rebate, but even after that. So, yeah. And
that cost is
Yeah.
yes. And so so this is the difference between the air and the ground source heat pump. So that one can maintain a constant COP of 4, even up to 50 Fahrenheit. But at that point of time, of course, again, that heat requirement of the home can be so high that again you might need your auxiliary heat. But the air source comes down much earlier. But since that temperature is not there so much in the Bay Area, so you can do it. And so this is why, yeah, you had a question?
Does the ground source need to be a certain depth?
Yes, it's so over here you are probably looking at vertical loop, but there is also the horizontal loop, right? The horizontal loops are much lower, so that you can do cut and cover, but since it requires a lot of area, and most people over here don't have that huge back here. So the horizontal loops are cheaper because you don't need to drill, but the vertical loops can go as low as like 100 feet.
Has anyone hit oil while they're drilling?
As a byproduct. So anyway, I mean, so the point is you come up with this kind of questions that should I save energy or generate the energy? And usually it's a good idea to save, but in this kind of situations where you have a ground source heat pump which can save you 1500 kilowatt hours, but it costs 20K more than an air source heat pump, and then you add a solar panel which generates 1500 kilowatt hours and the cost comes below the ground source heat pump. So it's not always prudent to just go for efficiency. The optimal cost point may be somewhere where it's not as efficient. And it may be a good idea if you have a new construction where the costs are lower, or if you have more severe winter conditions like outside New York or Minnesota. And then I come to this slide which shows you what is the effect of the EVs on the grid. And what this tells you is that this red line is actually the amount of power in the winter that California actually consumes, and the green line is the amount of power on some day that's still available. And you can see that if you charge your EVs at night, you still have 12 gigawatts of power available, which is enough to charge many EVs. And it will be many years before we can hit that requirement. And there will be some, of course, local issues. So if there are 5 EVs charging in a particular neighborhood, the local transformer will blow out or something. But other than that, from the capacity point of view, this is not an issue. And this is the electricity mix currently in California. So you can see that renewable has hit now 20%, but solar is only 1.5%. And though California is actually the most green in terms of energy mix in the mainland United States, and the solar, if you only use all the rooftops, then you can generate 41% of all the energy California needs with solar. And if you put in a few more of those big solar farms inside the Mojave Desert or Arizona, then you can generate everything.
Question, is this a sum of what's generated in California or what California is purchasing?
It's what California is consuming in terms of its
it's a combination of purchased and generated. That's what it is. A good Department of Energy website that you put in a zip code and will tell you.
Yeah, so it will vary from utility to utility. Like Palo Alto right now is completely renewable, right? Because they purchase all their power from renewable sources. But PG&E is one of the greener ones. There is some natural gas. Okay, that's this.
Back.
So when you say rooftop solar, are you including commercial buildings and residential buildings?
Yes, everything.
Everything.
Yeah. So the other thing is this long trips. So what we can do right now to take care of the long trips. So the battery technology right now is not cheap or mature enough to handle trips greater than 150 miles. And though the Model S can go to 260 miles, I mean, most people cannot afford that. So our family will use 100 gallons of gas per year for longer trips and vacations. And this is one solution that we can use right now to do the long trips, the flex fuel plug-in hybrid. So make the engine inside the car flex fuel so it can run on ethanol as well as gas. And actually, we do not have enough ethanol in US to run everything on ethanol, but if you run just 20% of the travel, which will happen if you have a plug-in hybrid, then probably we have enough ethanol. But there is still some problem because we recently had a drought and there were most of the ethanol is kind of made from corn, so there is this issue of food competing with energy, and so we don't want to get into that debate over here. So maybe not a very good solution, but can be done. So, if you can produce ethanol from, say, the cellulose, like wood chips or something, we may be able to. And so this is the US commute statistics, and it just shows you that 92% of our commutes can be handled by current EVs. So only a little bit is left. And there are these other solutions that you can use, like hydrogen fuel cells. There is a car, mostly in Southern California, that Honda leases out, which can run on hydrogen, but it needs the hydrogen dispensing infrastructure. You can have battery swapping, so you have a fully charged battery, you swap it out in the middle of the freeway and the battery runs low. And Better Place is the company which is advocating this, but it's run into all sorts of problems. There is currently just one car in the market, it's in Europe, the Renault Fluence Z, which has this capability, and just last week I think Nissan announced that they are not going to produce this car anymore. So which means that Better Place, I don't know how their business model will survive in the long run. And finally, I think this is more promising. It's the quick charging of large batteries. So currently, I think we need, when you pump gas, we pump at the rate of 30 miles a minute. I think if we charge a battery at 12 miles a minute, it's acceptable. And because we need to just do it on the interstate or something like that. And we need more denser batteries for that and lower cost batteries. So there is this company called Envia which claimed that it had a breakthrough, but that was last February, and since then I have heard nothing. So these are all the current quick charging technologies right there. That we're still fighting it out to see which one will become the standard. And I think there is even one more which is there in Europe. And right now, what we can get maximum is about 100 miles in 20 minutes. And what I say would be needed is about 250 miles in 20 minutes. So if you drive 250 miles on an interstate, it will take you about 3.5 hours. You can spend 20 minutes going to the restroom, having a coffee break, by which time it should be charged. And if you have to do that with current technology, you need a charger which is 240 kilowatts, right? And suppose there are 100 cars charging in an interstate, that is a 24 megawatt load, which is the peak load of Los Altos. So yeah, we need infrastructure, but what I'm saying is that this is nothing rocket science. I mean, this is all people understand this. You can solve this. There are a lot of these high voltage transmission lines crisscrossing the I-5. You can tap into them, build your substation, build the charging infrastructure there. And one other thing that actually I didn't mention here is that efficiency also plays a role here. So at current efficiency, you need to charge at 240 kilowatts. But suppose you increase your EV efficiency by 30%, which I don't think is so difficult. You reduce your aerodynamic drag, you reduce the weight using carbon fiber, then you need to charge much lesser to go the same distance. So as a result, you can actually probably cut it down to about 150 kilowatts or 160 kilowatts, which I think is feasible.
So about the projection, so how many cars do you think you would need to charge on highway? Let's say they were all electric. What do you think? What is the percentage? Yeah, I have to look at the number of fuel pumps there and their utilization ratio. So you would use the current infrastructure. Yeah, right. That's fine. Yeah, but I would think that at least 400 or 500 at a time is not unreasonable. Okay, and so this is the trend of the battery prices. So they have been going down. So currently they are at $450 a kilowatt hour. And in order for EVs to compete with gas cars in range without any cost differential or subsidies, we need to go to 150 kilowatt hours.
and I think it will, yeah.
Just question, was that without the gas subsidies or without the electric subsidies? Because there's all these hidden gas subsidies.
Yeah,
gas prices.
just electric subsidies.
Okay, but the gas subsidies
Yes.
are staying. Okay, gotcha.
So $150 per kilowatt hour, and I think it will happen in maybe another 10 years. It's getting there, but a bit slowly. And this is what happened to solar panels. So sometime last year, the solar panels actually reached grid parity. So now it's actually cheaper to generate solar power than all the existing ways of generating energy in the new plants. So I think it's getting there, but not quite there. So this is my dream, that in 10 years you get a 4-door mid-size EV sedan with about a 60 kWh battery pack, 135 mpg. So currently actually, right now the highest at 70 miles per hour is that Fiat 500e, which is 108 mpg. So it's not that far. You just need to do 30% more. And these are like first generation EVs. So, and 300-mile range, 240-mile fast charge in 20 minutes, and 30,000 fully loaded. And if you do the calculations for the cost with solar, it will come to that 50 cents a gallon. I hope it happens. Yeah, I think the Tesla Blue Star would be the one which will come very close to this. But still 5-6 level. So then there is the last part, so the missing pieces, and I'll quickly go through this. So the first missing piece, it's obvious, is that we need energy storage and redistribution. And the reason is that Mother Nature doesn't listen to you. So you will have many times when you have tons of renewable power but you have nowhere to use it, and then other times when you have no renewable power and you have tons of demand. So you have to find a way to kind of store that energy, and right now there are two types of storage that is needed. One is the daily storage. So the daily storage is you store like solar in the morning and then you use it during the night. And actually this thing, I think the solutions are inside. So one solution, especially for solar thermal, they use this molten salt based storage, where they heat up salt in a container to 900 Fahrenheit, whereas initially it's about 250 Fahrenheit, and then at night use that energy to run a steam turbine to get the electricity. And this is being done in Europe right now, and it's quite feasible. And the other thing is pump storage, which already California does. There is a huge facility near LA. Where you actually pump water when you have excess energy to a huge reservoir, and then at night you run a hydropower plant to get that energy. But the problem with that is it requires a huge amount of area, because water is not very dense. So in order to get some energy, you need to cover a huge amount of area with water. And then finally, you need seasonal storage. So this is the place where there is still no clear solution right now. So the solar is very seasonal in nature. You have good production in summer, but maybe 1/2 or 1/3 in winter. And so how to store that energy over the seasons is a problem. And finally, of course, there is the grid management, because you have now a bi-directional grid and distributed micro generation with a lot of small generating units, and so this needs to be solved. So this is something which needs to be done, and this is one company which is now currently in Berkeley. They have a solution that they are going to sell, I think either this year or next year, for storing energy using compressed air. So they have a shipping container kind of thing where they compress air using electricity, and when you compress air, actually it generates heat. So they have some proprietary technology of actually capturing that heat also. And then when you need the energy, reverse the cycle, use the heat and the pressure to kind of give back the energy. And there's one other crazy idea that I came across. So this is called gravity power. So this is similar to pump storage, but the problem I told you is that water is not very dense. So what if you have a piston made of concrete instead? and you somehow use hydraulics to move it up along a shaft when you have enough power. And then at night, or when you need the power, that gravity actually pumps that energy back to the generator. This is, I think, at least 6-7 years. There is a prototype being built right now. These guys are, they want these people who are good in shafts, and also they are people from mining in the company. And finally, this problem with aviation, shipping, and commercial road transport, the fuels. How are you going to generate those fuels? There are some biofuels in the mix, but only about 5%. There is a company called Solazyme which is trying to generate algae-based fuel, but still nowhere near what is needed. How to scale these solutions, how to make them cheaper, those are the issues. And then commercial road transport, of course, we can use something like a hub and spoke, where you have electric rail corridors for transporting, and then maybe locally biodiesel-based freight to do transportation. So I come to the lessons learned. So energy saving is cost effective up to a point. You can cheaper actually to generate. Optimizing the average case gives the most value for money. So this I found out again and again. So like in the Chevy Volt, you have your average case which is optimized, and then a little bit you use the gas. In the heat pump, you have your average case which is very efficient, and a little bit in auxiliary heat, which gives you the most value for money. So this is actually a good paradigm. And the rooftop solar adequate for most US family needs. Huge cost and energy savings if houses are designed with energy efficiency in mind. Need to design standby appliances with low power sleep modes, and it doesn't have cost of time to do this, like buying a mid-sized car which pays you back. And end consumers can go up to a point, and we need public policy after that. And of course, we do not have all the solutions yet, but we are getting there fast. And so my conclusion is that it can be done. We need basically three things. We need some long-term energy storage redistribution solution, some incremental advances in battery technology and EV efficiency, and solution in synthetic bio-based aviation and shipping fuel. And so I end with this quote that we need to cover only 0.6% of our land area with solar panels at current 16% technology to generate all the energy that the earth needs right now, on a yearly basis. And in US, which is actually a very big country with lots of land area, we just need to cover about 100 mile by 100 mile area, which is 0.3% of US land area. And actually, if you use the rooftops, it's 0.15% of US land area. And it will generate all the energy that the current US uses on a yearly basis.
That last quote you gave, I think, is from Mark Jacobson at Stanford.
Yes.
And almost everything you've covered here is available for anybody who wants to download it. It's a free book called WithoutHotAir.com.
Yes.
It's written by a Brit. It's really entertaining reading. So, there you are. All right. He's ahead of me.
So yeah, so there is this book actually by Emory Lovins. He is from the Rocky Mountain Institute. He has 40 years experience in energy policy and technology, and he has chalked out a plan of how the US can get out of fossil fuels by 2050, and it's very nice reading it with this book. And then there is Ron mentioned this without hot air, this website which also tells you about that. So my feeling is that this can all be done. It just requires some resolve and some public policy, and if we can kind of get rid of the politics in it, then I think it will be much faster.
Very good. Thanks for being here.